December 30th, 2025, Buddha Dhamma. This is the end of chapter 10. Appendix 10.8, 10.9, and 10.10. Appendix 1, 2, and 3. Appendix 8 says the three crimes of craving, tanha, craving. Appendix 2 is the harm of tanha, the harm of craving. Appendix 3 is Gautama Buddha's main attributes. Appendix 1. In some aspects, the three kinds of craving, tanha, kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vipawa tanha, the three kinds of craving, can be equated with Freud's concept of libido, life instinct and death instinct, although they are not exactly the same. Kama tanha can be defined as craving for the five chords of sensuality, as a delight in sensuality, or as a craving for the sixth sense base or objects. Bhava tanha is accompanied by a view of existence, bhava ditti, an externalist view, sasata ditti. Vibhava tanha is accompanied by an annihilist view, ucheta ditti. Kama tanha comprises all remaining forms of craving. According to the Buddhist teachings, the attachment to sensuality is more deep-seated in the fundamental than the attachment to the self of the view of existing as the distinct self. For example, in the term of the 10 fetters, samyojana, self-view, Sakaya ditti, is abandoned by a sotapanna, a stream enterer, whereas kamaraja, sensual lust, is abandoned by non-returners, arihats, or anagami also. In the reference to the four kinds of grasping, upatana, the attachment is the idea of self. Attavat upatana. It equals sakayatiti, the self-view. It's abandoned at the stage of stream entry, at the stage of a sotapanna. Whereas grasping upatana onto sensuality, the kama upatana, is abandoned at the realization of arihatship. That is a non-returner. Kama upavatana includes attachment to the fine material form, rupa raja, and the attachment to immateriality, arupa raja. So that's the end of Appendix 1, the three kinds of craving. Kama tanha, bhava tanha, and vipawa tanha. Appendix 2, the harm of craving, the harm of tanha, the harm caused by tanha. Page 1050. If tanha, craving, along with conceit, mana, and fixed views, ditti, replaces chanta. Chanta is wholesome desire, wholesome enthusiasm, and so forth, and overwhelms the mind, it can cause severe dukkha, severe suffering and harm for a virtuous person. Take, for example, as a consequence of a person's love of goodness and purity, craving, tanha, may establish an attachment to personal view and personal virtue until the person feels anxious about protecting his virtue. Fear, false evidence appearing real, fears a stain on his character and fears others people's misunderstanding. His dukkha, his suffering over these matters, is greater than most of what other people's feel. Hence, this anxiety is related to what Westerners, psychologists describe as guilt feeling, or the feeling of guilt. Another example, some people have an intense desire to build a virtuous society. They are unable to fulfill their ambitions, or if they meet obstacles, they feel angry. They cling, upatana, to their personal opinions more tightly, becoming more headstrong and willful. Alternatively, they have one pointed mission: to revolutionize and improve society, but turn to violent means in order to eliminate and purge those people who they view as uncooperative. They act out of anger and without any consideration for those people's well-being. Chanta, wholesome desire, wholesome enthusiasm, that is wholesome, that is dominated by tanha, by craving, mana, by selfishness, and ditthi, by their views, can thus lead to violence. The third example is highly competitive social systems. Work systems, lifestyles promote selfishness, lead people to act in a way that corresponds to craving for becoming. This is bhava tanha. When such systems are implemented in society in which there is a high degree of zeal and a will to act, chanta, many aspects of society will progress rapidly. The downside, however, is that these competitive systems will lead to problems like stress, anxiety, and mental illness. Hence what we have today in our society. When such systems are implemented in society lacking wholesome desire, they lack chanta, they tend to generate immoral behavior, confusion, and corruption. So this term here, lend to here, is because one must consider the other causes and conditions for behavior. Causality of behavior. That's the end of Appendix 2. And finally, the end of Chapter 10, 10.10, Appendix 3. Gautama's Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama's Buddha's main attributes. Siddhartha Gautama Buddha main attributes are considered to be twofold. The first fold is panya, wisdom, leading to a state of being, Buddha bhava. This is an awakening one. Remember, Buddha means awaken, bhava, to being a refuge unto oneself, atta nata, and to the completion of personal well-being, atta hita samadhi. And the second attribute of an awakened person is karuna, compassion, leading to the accomplishment of the awakened one's deeds, abura kicha, to being the savior of the world, lokanata, and to living a life of benefiting others, parita, pati. In some of these commentaries, visuddhi, purity, is distinguished as a separate attribute. But generally, purity is considered to be a part of wisdom, panya, because it is automatic results of enlightenment, and therefore this quality is usually not designated as a separate attribute. In the Vija Buttarika Gautama's Buddha's deeds, Buddha Chika, are stated as twofold. Work that is done with knowledge, Nana Kicha, and work that is done with compassion, Karuna Kicha. Gautama Buddha, Siddhartha, and the Arihats, Panya, wisdom is free from conceit and selfishness, free from mana dichi. Their compassion, Karuna, is free from attachment and grief. The compassion of unawakening mundane person is still pseudo-compassion, fake compassion, because their minds are not completely clear and bright. When they feel compassion, they are still personal attachments and affections, along with the sense of sadness and grief. With the division of Buddhism in two main schools, the Theravada, the way of the elders, tradition, is considered to emphasize wisdom, while the Mahayana, the greater vehicle, tradition, emphasizes compassion, karuna. Now that's the end of chapter 10.